Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel. This week we are getting back to the world of Neil Shusterman and Unwind with Book 3 of the Unwind series, Unsouled. For anyone who is new to the channel and has not seen one of my book reviews, the way they work is they are broken down into 3 different sections. What I think worked, what I think didn't quite work, and my overall thoughts and rating of the book. So with all that out of the way, let's jump into the review. This book takes place almost immediately after the attack at the end of Book 2 by the Juvenile Authority, and all of the Unwind kids that were kept in there have either gone on the run or have been captured and have been sent to the Unwind camps. And now Connor, Risa, and Lev are on the run and need to figure out a way to contact the resistance or find a way to start their own resistance in order to fight back against proactive citizenry and their efforts to expand the Unwind program. But in order to make that happen, they need to ally themselves with some very unlikely allies in order to survive. Along the way, they find out the answers to how this world has become the way it is, and that there is finally hope for the future and the abolishment of the Unwind program. Jumping into what I think worked, the first thing I think that works very well with this book is the new history that we get, because in Book 2, we got kind of a mention of something called the, Feral Kid Uprising and all that, but up until then, that was the only history we understood how we got to this point and how Unwind became so popular with the general public. But it's not until the reintroduction of Sonia in this book that we really get to fully understand how did Unwind start, how did proactive citizenry sell the idea of Unwind so effectively to the general public. And I love that idea because I am very interested in this world. I think it's got a lot of cool political commentary. There's a lot of current political commentary, which I enjoy. Us understanding the history of Unwind was really important because now we understand how this happened and what's truly at stake and how long proactive citizenry has been using Unwind as a scapegoat to control the population. So I really appreciate this new history with Sonia, and I think the Rhinechild chapters of the book are the most interesting because those are the ones that dive deep into the Unwind history and how we got here. So kind of jumping off from this point is something that I've always wanted to really understand, and that is what happens to Lev between when he disappears in Book 1 and when he reappears kind of toward the end as a clapper. We finally really get that history, and it turns out that he was hiding out in a Native American reservation. He became friends with the people on the reservation, and at some point, Lev and a couple of others went on this basically spirit journey, and they got caught by pirates. Lev was the only one to survive, and several of the people in the reservation hold it against him. I really enjoyed finally learning what happened to Lev, and I think the story is really interesting, and it kind of drives Lev's character kind of throughout this book, but I really do appreciate finally getting to understand that, because that was always one of the things that bothered me with Book 2 in particular, because we never understood where Lev was. He just kind of came in and out of the story, and now we finally understand what he was doing and how that affected his character and how that pushed him to become a clapper. So third thing I think I really enjoyed about this book was the character of Starkly. Now, I wasn't a huge Starkly fan during Book 2. I think it was interesting to have Connor have a rival with Starkly, and I kind of like that because it pushed him to be a better leader. Now, Starkly finally makes sense as a character to me because in this book, spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't read the book or wants to read it in the future, but Starkly becomes this leader of essentially this paramilitary organization, what he calls the Stork Battalion, and it's all of the Storks that are loyal to him. They're basically waging a war against the Juvenile Authority and the Unwind camps to try and fight for Stork freedom. But the big thing that happens with his character is that he becomes involved with proactive citizenry. He doesn't quite know that. So now he's getting played by the very side he's fighting against, which I just think is a great thing. And now I finally understand Starkly as a character. Proactive citizenry is using him as a double agent to work against his own cause, which I just kind of find brilliant. Jumping into what I think didn't quite work. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is the pacing of this book. And unfortunately, I think this is maybe the book's biggest problem because not a lot happens in this middle section. Like, the plot doesn't push forward dramatically. A lot of this middle section of the book is Connor, Risa, and Lev and Cam all hiding out in the reservation, and it's basically just them talking to each other and trying to figure out what their next move needs to be and where they need to go to find Sonia. I get why it's a lot of character development for Lev, Connor, and Cam, but it's so frustrating because we're just sitting there doing nothing really, and it's just everyone talking to each other, working through their trauma and everything, which, don't get me wrong, character development like that is good, but when you've got a ticking time bomb like Unwind does, it's not helpful to have them sitting around for so long. This book just kind of drives me nuts with how much they were just sitting around doing nothing and just discussing what they need to do next and where they need to go. The other thing is, all of the interesting plot stuff basically happens in the last quarter or so of the book. Like, the last 150 pages or so, that's when all of this stuff really comes together. But before that, nothing really that important happens. And it's just kind of a shame that we wasted kind of that much of a book learning about the characters and, like, not really advancing the plot that much. Like, the only kind of more interesting things that happen with this book is the stuff with Starkly and his Stork Rebellion. I kind of find that cool just to see what he's doing. There's a set of characters, which I will talk about in a bit, which absolutely drive me nuts that these characters are still in the book, and I will get to those now. As promised, I'm going to be talking about the characters of Argent and Nelson. Now, these two characters drive me absolutely insane that we're following them. Argent is this, like, weird kind of redneck hillbilly guy that Connor runs into, and he kind of becomes obsessed with Connor and catching him. And Nelson is the juvenile authority officer that Connor tranked in the very, very beginning of the series. So I just don't know why we're wasting so much time following these two. Like, I get that they're supposed to be kind of this looming threat hunting for Connor and the others, but the problem is we're so close to the finale of the series. Why are we wasting time with these characters that aren't really probably gonna matter for the next book? It's just so frustrating that we're wasting so much valuable time with these two characters that really aren't going to matter that much in the end, and I kind of wish that the book had either cut them entirely or just focused on one of them. We don't need both. Alright, so final thoughts on the book here. Overall, I think the weakest of the books in the series. I think it suffers a lot from the pacing problems. I think Arjun and Nelson, us following them doesn't help, but it kind of gets redeemed by the fact that we've learned so much about the world and particularly about what happened to Lev and everything. So I'm kind of conflicted. I like what we've learned about this book, but I just think structurally it doesn't work that well. And overall, it's definitely going to be the weakest book in the series for me, in my opinion. So I'm going to be giving Unsouled a 3.5 out of 5. Alright everyone, if you guys have read the Unwind series and want to discuss it, feel free to talk about it in the comments. Just try and keep it spoiler free for anyone who hasn't read the series. Otherwise, go crazy talking about it. And if you guys have books you want me to do reviews on in the future, feel more than free to leave those down in the comments as well. So if you guys want to follow me on social media, my TikTok and Instagram are both RN Book Reviews. I will leave links to everything down in the comments. Alright everyone, that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please do not forget, like, share, subscribe, and make sure you guys hit the notification bell so you do not miss anything.